Hansen entered the training field, and the gravity trainer was turned up. He suddenly felt a lot more burden. Everyone's eyes were suddenly on Hansen. Hansen had asked Jai Yanran about Wang Hu in private, because as sensitive as he was, he could feel the hostility Wang Hu held against himself. That was abnormal. Hansen was merely a new recruit and had not offended Wang Hu ever. He had not even met Wang Hu before. Hansen did not feel that the hostility simply came from the bump. What Jai Yanran told Hansen corroborated Hansen's assumption. Wang Hu was connected to the expert panel. Although he was the head of the Warframe department, he was elected because of the suggestion of the expert panel. Wang Hu himself had selected all the soldiers in his department. It was fair to say that the Warframe department worked for the expert panel. There were many scholars and experts pissed at Jai Yanran, which was a known fact. After all, Jai Yanran had just become an evolver. Although she came from a prominent family, that did not help the fieldwork, which was why the expert panel did not like her very much. In addition, the old captain whom Jai Yanran had replaced was very close to the expert panel, so that had also added to the prejudice the expert panel held against Jai Yanran. Because of Jai Yanran's family, no one dared to say anything. However, if Jai Yanran herself made some serious mistakes, it would be natural for her to be removed from Daphne. If he acted poorly, Jai Yanran would be humiliated. It was not an option for his girlfriend to be humiliated. Not just that, he needed to make her proud. Otherwise, he would not call himself her boyfriend. Hansen knew very well what Wang Hu was trying to do, but he did not care. You want to watch? I'll let you watch. Hansen made the first step on the metal wall, dashing on the white zone which was only 1 foot wide. Hansen was very fast, unlike the previous soldiers who were trying to control their speed so that they had more time to observe and decide how to go ahead. Hansen did the opposite thing. He was fast from the beginning, going forward on the randomly laid metal walls. A newbie is just a newbie. Going like this, he would fall in seconds. Many people were thinking in their head. Watching Hansen going as fast as this, Wang Hu could not help but feel surprised, wondering if Hansen was a true idiot or trying to fall as fast as possible. Even Chen Xiaoshan frowned slightly. If this was all he could do, it would be a waste of Jai Yanran's energy. Chen Xiaoshan was quite disappointed. Just a dozen seconds later, almost every soldier widened their eyes. Hansen was jumping up and down on the carefully placed metal walls, fast and steady. He managed to fulfill many actions that looked extremely scary flawlessly with a sense of rhythm. As he stepped on the leaning or reversed metal walls, he was so smooth that people almost forgot that it was sprint at level 10. When the difficulty and speed reached a certain level, it was credible to watch someone go like this. Going through one challenge after another at such high speed made people's blood boil. Everyone wished they were in the moment with Hansen. Very well done, Hansen. The fat squad leader was so happy that he could not close his mouth. Hansen had not made a single mistake from the beginning to the end. He was simply acting like the tutorial the AI simulated. This new recruit is great. Being someone close to the GIS, Chen Xiaoshan was happy to see Hansen's performance and smiled. Quartermaster Zhao Ping also nodded and said, "Great indeed." Director Lin Haifeng said, "What a great newbie. It is such a shame that he was sent to the cookhouse." Momentarily, Hansen had already gone through half of sprint without even lowering his speed. He kept running forward as if he could not stop himself. All the soldiers had become extremely excited. With the fat squad leader leading them, they started to clapping to cheer him up. As they were clapping, Hansen's moves felt even more arithmetic. Each of the step was on the beat, which was great to watch. When Hansen finished sprint on the last metal wall, the clapping became applause. Many soldiers even stood up. "Very nicely done. You deserve the reward. Here is the S-Class St. Hall license." Chen Xiaoshan walked to Hansen and gave him the license. "Thank you, Captain." Hansen took the license and saluted. "No need. You deserve it." Chen Xiaoshan patted Hansen on the shoulder and smiled. "You have very nice moves. Have you practiced this before?" "Sir, the system called Sprint is one of the products developed by Professor Yan from Blackhawk Military Academy. I am his student and one of the testers of the system," Hansen said truthfully. "That is why. So you came from a famous teacher. Then tell us about the system," Chen Xiaoshan said with approval. Chen Xiaoshan himself was the student of a famous professor, so he liked someone with Hansen's background. Hansen introduced this system Sprint to the soldiers as he was told to. He was someone who had used the system since it was developed, so he knew every detail about the system. After his introduction, the soldiers had a more profound understanding about the system and was less fearful of the challenge. Wang Hu gazed at Hansen, who was content among the crowds with a cold look, curled his lips and said contentedly, "Dumbass, show off as much as you could. The more you show, the faster you will die. Wang thought he had seen through Hansen's strength, so he felt quite content. In the eyes of Wang, who had passed 80 in his fitness, Hansen, whose fitness should be only around 40 or 50, was nothing. This S-Class St. Hall license was different from an ordinary license in that he was able to use it on Daphne to trade for the hyper-geno arts and geno solutions stored on the warship. Hansen did not hesitate and chose hyper-geno art. When he was picking, he had a slight trouble. Because Daphne was not the St. Hall, only 3 to 4 types of S-Class hyper-geno arts were stored on board, so Hansen had not too many options. Microcrystal, it was a hyper-geno art that could change the entire body. It could turn human body cells into microcrystal. When practiced well, the user's entire body would be turned into crystal. No weapon could injure the user, not even laser guns. In fact, most modern weapons would be useless in front of someone who practiced microcrystal. Of course, was very difficult to practice microcrystal. Without 3 to 5 years, one could not even get started with the hyper-geno art. Normally speaking, it took 1 to 2 decades to achieve anything. The reason that Daphne was carrying microcrystal and many crew members were practicing it was that microcrystal also gave its users some resistance against the destructive weapons in crystallizer rulings. That was why it was specially selected to be placed on Daphne. Many people who had been studying crystallizer ruins would practice microcrystal. However, because it took too long to practice it, only a few people had made some achievements with the hyper-geno art. Although there were not a lot of people who could go far with microcrystal, many experts and scholars in the expert panel were better at microcrystal, since they had practiced 2 or 3 decades or even longer. From a practical perspective, Jade Fist was definitely the obvious choice, because it could be put into use in 1 to 2 months. However, after some thoughts, Hansen used his license on microcrystal. The exploitation of a single crystallizer ruins often took years or even decades. Hansen did not know if he would spend his entire service excavating crystallizer ruins, so it would not hurt to practice microcrystal. After Hansen chose microcrystal, Wang Hu got the news very soon. But he only snorted contentedly. What's the use of microcrystal at this point? He will not get anywhere in 3 to 5 years. There is no way he could use it. Wang Hu felt Hansen's choice was too stupid. People who made choice like this were often perfectionists or obsessive. Although the future seemed to be bright, the practical value was so little that it was basically useless. Microcrystal was far less useful than Jade Fist. Hansen had no idea of what Wang Hu was thinking. After he got his hands on the microcrystal, he started to study it and saw the tutorial for 3 times. After having a brief idea about what it was, Hansen drank a bottle of Geno solutions designed for microcrystal and started to practice it. Feeling his body cells motivated under the effect of microcrystal, Hansen felt quite surprised. It was clearly stated in the tutorial that if he could feel something in the beginning, it meant the hyper-geno art was fit for him. However, even so, without 1 to 2 years, he would not see any effects. It was a hyper-geno art that took a long time to practice. If the progress was too great, the body would not be able to undertake the sudden change of the body cells, which would lead his health to collapse. Hansen watched every single detail according to the tutorial and ran the hyper-geno art through his body entirely. When he was ready to do it for the second time, something suddenly happened. Jade Skin that Hansen had always been practicing suddenly became active at this point and joined microcrystal. More precisely, it swallowed microcrystal, making microcrystal a part of the coolness it was creating. When Hansen started to practice Jade Skin, he was too old in age, since the foundation was not laid when he was a boy, and he had practiced the hyper-geno art for a short time. Hansen was not able to make a big progress with it. Without the help of Geno solutions, until this day, he still was not able to make the first breakthrough with Jade Skin. Hansen was stuck in a bottleneck and failed to make the breakthrough. However, when he drank the Geno solutions to practice microcrystal, Jade Skin was activated unexpectedly and was pushed to the first breakthrough. Hansen only had one feeling at this point: cold, piercing and thrilling cold. The cold did not come from the outside but seemed to come from within. It was as if every single inch of his body was giving off the coldness, making Hansen feel like he was going to turn into an ice statue. He wanted to stop activation of Jade Skin, otherwise wondered if he would be frozen to death. However, Jade Skin was like a wild horse that did not follow his control at all. The cold got worse and worse, making Hansen become unconscious. "I can't sleep. If I fall asleep, I'm afraid I will not wake up ever." Hansen knew very well what would happen to someone who fell asleep in the snow, so he was striving to be lucid. However, it did not help a lot. At this point, he could not even move his fingers. Damn it, how come the thermostat is broken at this point? Is God trying to kill me? Hansen wanted to smash the damned machine, but unfortunately, he could not even move. Suddenly, an idea crossed Hansen's mind, which made him widen his eyes. No way. There is no such a coincidence. The reason the thermostats did not change only meant the room temperature did not actually drop. The cold I am feeling is very likely just a hallucination rather than a reality. Thinking of that, Hansen quickly gritted his teeth and told himself, I'm not cold. I'm not cold. Everything is fake. It's just my hallucination. Damn it, it's really cold. Hansen felt like the psychological suggestion did not really work, because he was actually frozen to death. It felt like his heart was frozen and blood had stopped flowing and became ice. The coldness went to his heart. Gradually, the cold left him, and Hansen started to feel warm. It was like sunshine in winter, making his trembling body feel better. Although it was not hot, it made him feel so comfortable that he almost moaned. However, Hansen did not feel happy about it. He became even more worried. He knew that the cold did not go away. The warmth meant he was not far from death. As soon he was fooled by the heat and fell asleep, he would never wake up. When he was discovered by others, he would be a dead body. He tried his best not to fall asleep, but he felt more and more fuzzy. In the end, he could not help but fall asleep. Hansen did not know how long he had been sleeping. When he woke up again, he felt so comfortable as if he had just stepped out of a hot spring. What? I did not die. Hansen raised his hands incredulously and pinched his cheeks. Feeling the pain, he yelped. Hansen felt his body was somewhat different. Although he could not tell what was different, the feeling could not be mistaken. Hansen could not wait to run Jade Skin in his body, trying to figure out what had happened. The moment he started, he saw his two hands had become transparent like ice or jade. These hands reminded Hansen of Zhu Longyan's hands the only time he met Zhu Longyan. However, Hansen's hands were even more fine than Zhu Longyan's. It was hard to believe they were human hands. First breakthrough. I made the first breakthrough in Jade Skin. Hansen practiced Jade Skin in excitement, turning his entire body into jade. Jade Skin. This is what Jade Skin truly meant. I made it. Hansen could not resist his excitement. Watching his translucent body, he almost laughed out loud. Looking at himself in the mirror, he saw his skin became more tender and smooth. However, there was not much of a difference between now and then. His eyes were more watery like gemstones, which made him look quite charming. If I continue this way, I will be more and more like a gigolo. Feeling upset, Hansen hoped he could look more masculine. However, that was no big deal. There was no need to care about the appearance. Hansen ran microcrystal again, wanting to make sure that he was still able to practice this hyper-geno art. Very soon, Hansen opened his mouth wide. After practicing microcrystal, he found that microcrystal was just a small part of Jade Skin. When he used microcrystal, Hansen felt his body was toughened because the body cells were crystallized, making him look like a statue carved out of crystal. Microcrystal, I achieved it. The hyper-geno art that took others 2 to 3 decades to practice was easily achieved by Hansen. Even Hansen himself could not believe that was happening. Shortly, Hansen found that it was not really a fact worth celebrating. The effect of microcrystal was far worse than Jade Skin after he made the first breakthrough. The only good thing about microcrystal was that now he had an excuse to cover the fact that he had been practicing Jade Skin. After finishing his task on the warship, Hansen had some free time again to enter God's sanctuary. Young Manly had finished recruiting. 80 to 90% of the people living in that area joined Goddess Gang that Hansen had formed and signed formal contracts. Although Hansen needed to provide some meat at low costs, it was nothing compared to what he had gained. When he was ready to conquer the Spirit Shelter, all these people needed to play a part. Young Manly told Hansen that the recruitment did not go well initially. Because Uncle King was the first to join the gang, everyone else followed. Hansen nodded and did not speak. The Nings were expressing kindness to him, but Hansen did not dare to treat them as friends. He still knew too little about things in the past, so he could not decide whether the Nings were friends or enemies. Now that Goddess Gang is formed, what's your next move? Young Manly asked Hansen. She was quite reluctant to call the gang Goddess Gang, because there were less than 10 women in the entire gang, and none of them could be called a goddess. However, Hansen insisted on the name. Since it was just a name, Young Manly did not care. She did not know that in Hansen's eyes, the gang members recruited at this point were all just the help. The goddess gang he was going to formulate was a group of spirit beauties. Wherever he appeared in the future, 3,000 spirit beauties would clear the way for him, which would be a dream coming true. Of course, the condition was that his super body king spirit could make spirits give their allegiance to him. Otherwise, his dream would just be a dream, not to mention a group. He would not even be able to get a few spirits working for him. Let them gobble up the meat first, and then we will train them and select the best of them to form the backbone of Goddess Gang. Then, we'll go conquer the Spirit Shelter. Hansen was waiting for Zero to come and take her to smash the Spirit Shelter, so he would spend the time to train these people. Young master, if you want to hunt, I know exactly the place that suits the team, suggested Uncle King when he heard Hansen was going to do that. Hansen heeded his advice and asked him to lead the way. The team marched toward the glaciers Uncle King was talking about. Although it was an area of glaciers, avalanche or accidents rarely happened. Hansen did not worry about that. All they had run into on the way was a few ice-armored beasts, so Hansen did not bother to move. Riding on the back of the golden growler, Hansen was reading as he ate the jerked bird leg of the evil-blooded condor while watching the team hunt. Hansen looked through the database on Daphne for information about beast soul glyphs and indeed found something. No one had ever discovered beast soul glyphs in First God's Sanctuary, but the beast soul type started to come up in Second God's Sanctuary and above. In addition, only mutant or sacred blood creatures would produce beast soul glyphs. The functions of beast soul glyphs were very complicated. Each one had its own unique function. In conclusion, a beast soul glyph would give its user a certain ability. For example, there was a kind of bear glyph that could enhance one's strength, and there was a wind beast glyph that would increase the user's speed. Since no one had hunted an evil-blooded condor before, Hansen was not sure what kind of ability he would get. He had been observing for days and did not discover anything different when using the beast soul. So, what is the function of the evil-blooded condor glyph? Hansen could not figure it out and had to put it aside. At this point, Hansen finally understood how great it was to be a gang leader. Watching his subordinates killing creatures bravely, Hansen knew that he would eventually gain the better half of their labor. There were not a lot of members in the gang at the moment. In the future, if the Goddess Gang had thousands or tens of thousands of members, he would be able to receive a significant amount of income from his cut of everyday hunting. It was equally beneficial to the gang members. Compared to hunting alone, it was much easier to hunt in a gang. At the same time, the income was equally good or even better. Their safety was also enhanced. Young master, let's stay in this area. If we move further, there might be mutant creatures. Uncle King stopped and said to Hansen, let's continue. Mutant creatures are even better. Hansen commanded the team to go forward, because he was not that interested in hunting primitive creatures. Although they were following Hansen's order, many people started to feel worried, looking left and right for fear that there might really be mutant creatures. The only person able to fight a mutant creature in this place was Uncle King. If others encountered mutant creatures, they were likely to become a meal of the creatures. Although Young Manly wanted to talk Hansen out of it, she knew it would not serve any purpose, because Hansen would not listen to her at all. Young Manly ended up saying nothing. Uncle King did not argue either, continuing to lead the way. All of a sudden, they heard loud hoofbeat and beast roar. A giant elephant with white fur rushed toward them from afar, leaving one huge footprint after another. All the glaciers seemed to be shaking. Snowflakes were flowing everywhere. White mammoths, someone suddenly exclaimed. The entire group scattered like a mob. Hansen saw most people were running and only Young Manly, Uncle King, and a few gang members stayed next to him, summoning beast souls and ready to fight. It was easy to tell that the gang members were all frightened, their hands on their weapons shaking. All other people were running fast, about which Hansen was not surprised. These people had lost their confidence a long while ago, so it was natural that they reacted this way facing danger. Hansen had considered them no good in his heart. In the future, he would not waste his time cultivating these people. To the contrary, Zuyu and other young people did not escape and remained on Hansen's side although they were frightened. Hansen thought they could be further cultivated to become leaders, commanding the future forces in Goddess Gang. Although they were all quite young and probably had worse physique than the older people who had run away, these were no big deal. Hansen could easily use large amounts of meat to give them better geno point counts. There was always a way to enhance one's physique and martial arts skills. However, one's character was not something could be cultivated. In Hansen's eyes, Zuyu and other young people were all valuable assets. Clear, Hansen yelled, commanding the gang members to step back. He rolled on the back of the golden growler and charged the white mammoth. All the young gang members looked at Hansen in surprise. As a mutant creature, the white mammoth was a top one. Even someone like Uncle King did not dare to face a white mammoth head-on. But Hansen simply threw himself at the creature. Watching Hansen with a grim face, Uncle King murmured to himself in a low voice, "Is he really the descendant of Instructor Han?" Young Manly drew her bowstring and aimed her arrow at an eye of the white mammoth, ready to support Hansen when necessary. However, the bow and arrow she was using at the moment were still sacred blood beast souls of First God's Sanctuary, which almost did not work at all on a mutant creature in Second God's Sanctuary like the white mammoth. The golden growler was going fast. In terms of size, the golden growler was no smaller than the white mammoth. As the golden growler ran, its body was quickly growing. The moment it was about to clash with the white mammoth, the golden growler was already as large as a hill, even bigger than the mammoth. Compared to the golden growler, the white mammoth suddenly looked mini, like a baby elephant in front of an adult elephant. Boom! The two beasts clashed together. Although the golden growler was bigger than the white mammoth, it was not at any disadvantage, but stepped back as well as the white mammoth. Roar! The golden growler growled reluctantly. It was the absolute king in First God's Sanctuary. No creature could fight it at all. However, it was forced back by a white mammoth, which made the lion very mad. The white mammoth also roared and ran toward the golden growler. Boom! The two huge animals were fighting it out again, making all sorts of horrendous noises. The surrounding glaciers were broken into pieces and there was snow everywhere. Boom, boom, boom. The golden growler and the white mammoth became extremely mad at each other, so neither of them intended to step back. They ran into each other hard like two oxen fighting for a cow. The gang members were dumbstruck. They had seen many mounts before, but had never seen a mount that was able to fight the creature. It was simply beyond imagination. A normal mount would not attack at all. However, this giant golden lion mount was somewhat different. The people that had run away saw what was happening and slowed down, looking at the golden growler throwing itself at the white mammoth incredulously. That is a mutant creature. What's the deal of the mount? It's so strong that it could fight the white mammoth. Is that a mutant mount? Even if it is still just a mount and should not be able to fight a creature like this. Hansen sighed inwardly. After all, the golden growler was just a super creature from First God's Sanctuary. Although it was special, because it was limited to its level, it was not as strong as the white mammoth. Watching the golden growler falling farther behind under the impact from the white mammoth and growling helplessly, Hansen could not help becoming silent. He was reminded of the large golden growler's fierceness. Between the heaven and earth, no one could stand one blow from its paw. This beast's soul golden growler was indeed too sullen. If the black crystal could really turn the beast souls of First God's Sanctuary into the beast souls of Second God's Sanctuary, I would definitely choose the golden growler to evolve next. Hansen thought. He did not want to see a great king being a loser. Although he was thinking that, Hansen decided to make a move. The moment the golden growler clashed with the white mammoth again, Hansen jumped up from the head of the golden growler and dashed at the white mammoth like a meteor. The physique of the white mammoth was even better than that of golden growler. However, it still had to step back when the golden growler threw itself at him. At this very moment, Hansen had already reached the mammoth. Holding the cursed wolf dagger in his hand, Hansen sent himself into the wheel-sized eye of the mammoth. Roar! The white mammoth lifted its front legs. Blood ran into rivers flowing from its eyes. The beast screamed loud. The next moment, the stomach of the white mammoth was suddenly slashed open. A bloody figure came out of it. Boom! The white mammoth quickly fell, splashing ice and snow everywhere. Without looking at the body of the white mammoth, the bloody figure walked to the rest of the team when cleaning the dagger casually. Almost no one was able to forget this moment. The gigantic dead creature and the bloody figure were written into their memory internally. After killing the white mammoth, Hansen had established his prestige in Goddess Gang. People had officially recognized him as the leader. Many young people even saw him as an idol. The Goddess Gang had become more and more organized. Hansen was very generous to the members that worked hard, awarding them with lots of meat. Then, Hansen asked Young Manly to specifically cultivate the young men like Zuyu who dared to risk their lives. Hansen's arrival brought a revolution to the place. Although they still did not dare to hunt in remote areas or approach the spirit shelter, with Hansen leading the team, they were able to kill lots of ordinary and primitive creatures at once in the mountains nearby. This gave some hope to the evolvers in this place. Many people who had not entered God's sanctuary in a long time and lost hope returned to the place after hearing the news, wanting to see if the legend was real. It turned out they were ecstatic. The world of ice and snow was no longer silent like before. People were active everywhere. Because Hansen rarely showed up, few people knew what he looked like. Most people only knew the name Hansen. More people thought of Hansen as a legend, a living legend. An evolver who had just entered Second God's Sanctuary for a few months revived a place on his own and inspired lots of desperate people, which could only exist in a legend. Obviously, more people recognized Young Manly, the right-hand woman. Many people assumed that Young Manly was the goddess in Goddess Gang and thought she was Hansen's lady, the mistress of Goddess Gang. Of course, Young Manly had also heard such assumption. In the beginning, she was shy and angry. However, it was impossible for her to clarify every time. After a while, she was tired of correcting others. On this day, when Hansen just teleported into God's Sanctuary from the Alliance, someone suddenly ran at him and hugged his thigh full of tears. Zhu Ting. As Hansen saw who it was, he could not help feeling dazed. He had no idea that he would run into Zhu Ting here. How dare you show your face? You really think I will not kill you, don't you? Hansen's face became stern. Brother, it is meaningless to live in such a spot. Can I follow you? If I can't, I would rather die. Just kill me. Zhu Ting would not let go of Hansen's leg. Hansen chuckled inwardly and thought to himself, this guy is quite unlucky to be assigned here. He must have gone through many hardships. It looks like he's going mad. When did you arrive here? How come I never saw you? So, you want to follow me. But why should I agree to that? Hansen looked at Zhu Ting with half a smile. No matter what Zhu Ting wanted, Hansen would like to collect something from him first. Brother, no matter what, I should be much more useful than those ordinary people, right? Zhu Ting blinked and answered. And much more dangerous, Hansen replied quietly. Didn't Instructor Han mention that my ancestor was also a member of the Secret Service, a colleague of his? Zhu Ting quickly said. I don't know. Hansen did not want to comment. Give me something solid. If you want to follow me, you must pay up front first, Hansen said. Zhu Ting said with a sad face, after I came to this damned place, I have gained nothing and lost almost all the beast souls I brought from First God's Sanctuary. Now I am so poor that all I have is money. Do you want money? Name a number and I'll pay you no matter how much. Don't you still have 7 twists? Hansen said abruptly. Hansen had always coveted 7 twists from the Chens. Although he could fly with beast soul wings, the speed would be determined by the strength of the beast soul instead of his strength. Therefore, Hansen was very interested in this technique that could send him in the air using what he got. However, 7 twists was the family secret of the Chens. No outsiders could be taught. With such an opportunity, Hansen wanted to test if Zhu Ting could teach him 7 twists. Although 7 twists is the family secret of the Chens, there is a way for you to learn. However, since it runs in the family, there is a rule that the secret could not be leaked. If you want to learn, you will have to become a student of my family, said Zhu Ting. Although Zhu Ting did not say no, there was no way that Hansen would agree to become a student of the Chens, which meant he could not learn the Hyper-Geno art. So, there is no way around that. Hansen turned around and was ready to leave. Stop, listen to me. Even if I was willing to ignore the rules and teach you 7 twists, all I knew was the first 3 twists anyway. Without the special Geno solutions, there was no way you could succeed in practicing it either. Zhu Ting saw Hansen was still leaving and said quickly, Brother, hear me out. When I was chased around by the mutant creature a while back, I found a great place which you would definitely be interested in. How about I show you the place? If you think it is interesting, just let me join Goddess Gang. If you think the place is no good, I will no longer bother you. What kind of a good place? Hansen asked. A nest? Zhu Ting lowered his voice and said to Hansen. Hansen looked at him surprised. The fact that Zhu Ting found a nest meant he had found a sacred blood beast soul. What a lucky guy. Take me there first, Hansen thought about it and said. He was not worried that Zhu Ting might have any tricks up his sleeve. Even if there was a sacred blood creature, Hansen could protect himself. However, in the case that there was a sacred blood creature or even a super creature in the nest, it would be terribly difficult for him to break the egg. Zhu Ting took Hansen out of the ice cave and entered the mountains. Hansen felt they were going too slow and summoned the golden growler, asking Zhu Ting to sit with him. Brother, what a nice ride. Do you want to sell this mount? I could accept any price, Zhu Ting said admiringly, looking at the golden growler. I will not sell this one, but if you want to purchase a beast soul, I do have one. Hansen suddenly had an idea. The Berserk Ice Armored Beast soul that he gained the last time was useless to him. If Zhu Ting was willing to pay a high price, Hansen would like to sell it to him. What beast soul? A mutant one or a sacred blood one? Zhu Ting looked at Hansen in excitement. A primitive beast soul of ice armored beast, replied Hansen. Zhu Ting was slightly disappointed, but he still said, well, that is nice as well. It is beast soul armor, relatively strong among primitive beast souls. It is a berserk one, Hansen added. Zhu Ting suddenly widened his eyes and said, Brother, you got a berserk ice armored beast soul. Among primitive creatures, only 1 in several dozen could become berserk. and it was even harder to gain the beast soul, which was why a berserk beast soul was much more expensive than the beast soul on the same level. I won't force you to teach me 7 twists since you are not allowed to, but your family must have an S-class footwork designed for evolvers. Hansen looked at Zhu Ting and said. Zhu Ting suddenly became hesitant and said, well, forget about it. I don't really need a beast soul. Hansen knew what he meant. A berserk beast soul of ice armored beast was worth $10 million tops after taking into consideration of the scarcity of the beast souls. However, that was too little to trade for an S-class secret footwork. No one would make such a trade. Relax, I'm not trying to trade the berserk beast soul for your footwork. I will pay you an S-class St. Hall license of evolver level for the footwork. The berserk beast soul could be considered your service fee, Hansen said with a smile. The Chens have an evolver footwork treading cloud. If you're interested, I could give up my dignity and get it for you. Tell me about it. What kind of footwork is treading cloud? Hansen squinted and asked. Zhu Ting demonstrated what it was like, which made Hansen's eyes light up. Treading cloud was a footwork that emphasized leg skills. After it was practiced successfully, the body cells of one's legs could be enhanced. Treading cloud meant it was so easy to reach the sky after practicing this footwork. Although it was an exaggeration, it showed that the footwork emphasized explosive leg strength. To Hansen's satisfaction, after practicing treading cloud, although he would not be able to leverage on the air 7 times, he would be able to leverage on the air once. Unlike what Hansen had invented, this was a perfect leverage. Zhu Ting took Hansen to find the nest. With the speed of the golden growler, it took them more than half a day to spot layering mountains formulating a life lotus, which was the entrance to the nest. Luckily, there was no creatures nearby. They climbed over the mountains and went down the entrance until they reached the green gold wall. The green gold wall was still intact. No one had entered. Although Zhu Ting found the place, he did not dare to enter. Zhu Ting was smart in that he knew what was within his ability and what was beyond, which was not something everyone knew. After all, men are animals of emotions, so it was hard for them to keep rational all the time. Wait outside. I'll go check it out, Hansen said to Zhu Ting and broke the green gold wall to enter. The omniscient green light made the large nest a scary space. Oddly shaped cells were everywhere, all intact. There was no way to tell which one had nurtured a creature. Hansen slowly approached the cells, but because there were too many cells, they were all crammed together. There was no way to go through other than climbing over the cells. Hansen did not dare to jump onto a cell. Staring at a 20 feet tall oval cell, he slowly walked ahead, feeling uncomfortable as if something was about to get wrong. Roar. When Hansen was about 30 feet from the cell, it suddenly exploded. A black creature with 2 silver horns and bat wings that looked like a gargoyle suddenly rushed out from the broken cell. Hansen only glanced at it before he started to run as fast as his legs could carry him. Although he had not fought the creature yet, judging by its speed, Hansen was sure that the gargoyle was a sacred blood creature with a physique over 100. Hansen was glad that it was the first thing that caught his eyes. If Hansen ran into this creature when he had gone deep already, it would be much harder for him to run away. Hansen only ran a few steps when the gargoyle caught up with him. Its arm as strong as a marble column quickly swung at Hansen's back. On its claw, each of the nails was more than half a foot long, as sharp as a tungsten dagger. Even a body made of Z-steel would be broken by such nails. Without turning back, Hansen moved his body like a snake away from the blow of the gargoyle, as if he had eyes on his back. Then Hansen continued to run in a twisted route. Flapping its wings, the gargoyle was behind Hansen immediately. However, its blow was useless again. Hansen was as slippery as an eel, slipping through the gargoyle's arms again and again. Hansen looked to the direction of the entrance and saw that Zhu Ting had left, faster than a rabbit. Having failed several times, the gargoyle quickly howled as Hansen was about to run to the narrow path. The silver horns of the gargoyle suddenly glowed and the silver color started to bleed toward the gargoyle's black body. All of a sudden, the gargoyle became a silver statue, which looked strangely glamorous. Damn it, a berserk sacred blood creature, Hansen exclaimed. The silver gargoyle almost instantaneously appeared behind Hansen, clawing at Hansen's head. The speed of the silver gargoyle was so fast that Hansen had no time to dodge the blow. Although he was trying to use kiting skills as much as possible, in front of the absolute speed, all his efforts were useless. Hansen gritted his teeth and used Jade Skin. Reaching a hand at the thick arm of the berserk beast, Hansen was not trying to beat the creature with his force. As the two arms clashed, Hansen entangled the thick arm of the silver gargoyle like a snake and slid onto its body, perfectly combining ghost haunt and diversion. Hansen also used the flexibility he gained from practicing Jade Skin to reach this effect. The silver gargoyle tried to catch Hansen, who was hanging on its back, while Hansen had slid down to the gargoyle's crotch and hitting the part hard. Boom! Hansen's jade-like fist hit the gargoyle's crotch hard, making it scream madly. The gargoyle quickly used both hands to claw at Hansen. Hansen turned his body around on the gargoyle's thigh and moved back to its back. Grabbing the gargoyle's wings, Hansen quickly chopped his hand at its neck. Moving around on the gargoyle's body, the gargoyle tried to catch Hansen in madness but kept failing. However, the physique of the Berserk Silver Gargoyle was so strong that even after Hansen used Jade Skin, he could only make its silver body swell a little. Hansen did not dare to use the cursed wolf dagger because it was not strong enough to break this body, and because holding the dagger would affect Hansen's movements. Hansen even tried to claw at the gargoyle's eyes, but it was equally useless. Its eyes were as tough as its body, made of silver metal. Hansen felt the time, which was less than a minute, was as long as hours. It was not an easy thing to fight the gargoyle this way. Hansen had used his physical and mental power to his limit. Every slight movement was carefully calculated. Both his physical and mental strength was depleted. Even so, Hansen was still facing worse risks. The Berserk Gargoyle became faster and faster. A few times, its nails had scratched Hansen, making him bleed immediately. Hansen was not shaken at all. He continued to slither on the gargoyle's body like a snake, but his moving range was smaller and smaller. Eventually, the Berserk Gargoyle pushed Hansen so hard that he had nowhere to go. The gargoyle quickly clawed at Hansen, was right on its body. As the sharp silver nails were about to stab into Hansen's body, Hansen quickly pushed the gargoyle's head and jumped in the air, avoiding its claw. Hansen took the opportunity to run out of the nest. He could still vaguely hear the roaring of the raging silver gargoyle. The physique of the silver gargoyle was so good that Hansen could not kill it at the moment. However, since he had already learned that there was a sacred blood creature in this place, he could always come back when he had enough Geno points. "Brother, you are here. Are you okay?" Zhu Ting was waiting at the entrance, looking down from time to time. "Luckily, I ran out, but I could not kill that thing," Hansen said and started to walk away. "How about me joining Goddess Gang?" Zhu Ting came up to Hansen and asked. "If you want to, I'll permit it," Hansen said casually. He would keep Zhu Ting around for the moment because he was still thinking about 7 twists of the chens. After leaving the nest, Hansen went back to the Alliance and urged Zhu Ting to get the Geno solutions as soon as possible. It was almost time for Zero to return to the God's Sanctuary, so Hansen thought it was time to conquer the Spirit Shelter. However, he would like for everyone of Goddess Gang to join the war against the Spirit Shelter. Otherwise, if he went himself, the gang members would not appreciate the gains. They did not fight for that much. Of course, Hansen was going to make sure he will get the Spirit Stone in the shelter. He did not care about anything else that much. After Hansen returned to Daphne, he finished his own task and looked at his future schedule. In 2 days, he would join the cooking team to prepare food. Soldiers could only have food for 5 days out of a month. Normally, they would just take nutrition solutions. However, the expert panel was different. They ate every day, so the existence of the cookhouse was mainly meant for the expert panel. After resting for 2 days, reading and training, it was Hansen's turn to work. Hansen finally understood that the work of the cookhouse was difficult sometimes. Those experts and scholars were very picky about what they ate. According to the rules, each of them shall have 3 dishes and 1 soup per meal, and there must be meat. In addition, several professors in the expert panel could even order their own food, which was a privilege that even Jai Yanran and Chen Xiaoshan did not enjoy. Hansen was not a great cook, so all he could do was to prepare the raw materials and transfer the food to the plates. "You must be the new cookhouse recruit, Hansen. I heard you passed sprint at level 10. A young researcher of the expert panel asked Hansen while he was getting his food. "It was because I have seen it before. It's no big deal," Hansen said casually. "You graduated from Blackhawk?" the young researcher asked. "Yes," Hansen slightly frowned and replied. He glanced at the young researcher, who was about 30 years old and quite good-looking. His lips were thin, which gave him a feminine look. "Not bad. When I was in Alliance Central Military Academy, Blackhawk ranked about 100. I wonder how it's doing now," the young researcher said quietly. Hansen felt the guy's tone was a bit off, squinted and said, "I'm not sure. I did not have many opportunities to see people from Alliance Central Military Academy. I was in an archery tournament against that school though. Alliance Central Military Academy was quite impressive, so it took me some effort to get rid of them and gain the championship," Hansen said casually. He did not want to be nice to people like this. "Haha, if you want to brag, there is still a limit. In what kind of tournament can Blackhawk beat Alliance Central Military Academy?" Is it a bragging contest? The reply of the researcher made everyone in the expert panel laugh. These researchers mainly came from Alliance Central Military Academy, because there were not many academies that had the major of crystallizer ruins research. Most of the professors that focused on crystallizer culture taught at Alliance Central Military Academy, so the experts and professors in the expert panel were also mostly affiliated to Alliance Central Military Academy. As the graduates of the best military school in the Alliance, they were of course arrogant. Several researchers from the expert panel had also tried Sprint, but none of them passed level X. They all felt quite content when hearing a cookhouse soldier pass level X, because they knew Hansen was familiar with the system. There was no way Hansen was as strong as them. This researcher named Tang Xin was very pissed about this, which was why he provoked Hansen. "I'm so sorry. I have no idea Alliance Central Military Academy is such a big deal. Unfortunately, I have already graduated and could no longer participate in the games. Otherwise, I would be easier on them and make them look better." Hansen shrugged and said with a smile. As Hansen said that, many researchers looked to him. Even several professors couldn't help glancing at him. "Okay, so you say you beat Alliance Central Military Academy. So, tell me, where and when did you do that?" Tang Xin snorted and said, because he did not believe Hansen at all. "I don't remember which game, since it's such a trivial matter for me. You could go search my name, and you will probably see it." Hansen knocked the spatula on the edge of the plate. "If you don't have anything else to say, please give way to others. They have to eat as well." Tang Xin was a bit upset. Tang Xin gritted his teeth and walked to Professor Lai Mingtang, pleading, "Professor, could you look it up for me to see if he was telling the truth?" On Daphne, ordinary people did not have the access to the Skynet. All they had was an internal database, which was why Tang Xin asked Professor Lai Mingtang to look it up for him. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.